What's going on, friends? It's Anton Daniels, and I gotta have a conversation with you guys about Tiege Hanley because you see how the sun is hitting me. This is no finesse, no makeup, no filters, no none of that. This is 100% Tiege Hanley. I use it in the morning as soon as I get up, right after I pray and brush my teeth, jump in the shower, and I'm hitting the streets because you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So even though they're giving you 40% off your first order, 20% off for life, even though you may get a free gift, forget all that, right? Because we would do this even if it was full price because it's worth that much. I'm in the streets, I'm kicking it with people when I see Dusties everywhere. You don't want to be them. You want to separate yourself. And the way that you separate yourself is self care. Ladies get it for the fellas. Fellas don't wait for the ladies to get it for you. I'm about to hit the streets right now and I'm feeling confident. I'm feeling great. I mean, I already got confidence, but to have that extra boost of confidence, knowing that you've taken care of yourself and you set yourself apart from all of the rest of the sheep that's walking around making bad decisions on a daily basis. And it's reflected in their actions. It's reflected in the products that they use. It's reflected in the people that they follow. And so if you're trying to level up, if you're trying to make sure that you look good, they're going to send you the pack. They're going to give you all of the instructions on how you're supposed to use it. Then make sure you get your Tiege Hanley. Again, 40% off your first order, 20% off for life. Get your free gift. Make sure you tap in with your boy Anton Daniels because Unc is never going to lead you wrong. I would never have you use a product that I don't use myself. Again, they've been rocking with me for a long time. Make sure you get your Tiege Hanley. I love you. I appreciate you. I'm going to holler at you guys later. What's going on is Anton from AntonDaniels.com. I appreciate you guys for continuing to rock with me. Thank you for tuning in for another edition of the Millionaire Morning Show. I am your host, Anton Daniels. Here it is 6 a.m. where you are on the East Coast. It may be 9 a.m. Eastern. And for my people over there in Central Time, it may be 8 Mountain Time, 7, but here Pacific is 6. And we getting it, we not missing it, and we gonna continue to run it up. Shout out to y'all. Shout out to everybody that's getting to it, everybody that's getting to a bag. I love you. I appreciate you. It is Wednesday, October 2nd, 2024, year of our Lord. I agree, P. Shank. I'm going to read that super chat shortly. It was an interesting debate. I would like to call it a masterclass, but it was definitely something worth watching. For those of you that didn't watch it, I would encourage you to start caring more about the things that's actually going to impact your life and that is more meaningful versus just being, you know what I'm saying, milling and letting other people decide your fate and what's going to happen in your life. So, we got a full show for you guys today. I do have a flight that I got to catch later on today, later on this afternoon. So, I'm working, I'm grinding, man, and we don't miss. You know we don't miss. Shout out to the bag chasers first and foremost. Make sure you get your Tiege Hanley. Thank you to Tiege Hanley for continuing to sponsor what we got going on over here at the Millionaire Morning Show. 40% off your first order, 20% off for life. It is a phenomenal product. Thank you, Tiege Hanley, for continuing to hold us down. Also, on top of that, I would encourage you guys to join the Patreon. The best time to tap into the Patreon is the beginning of the month. So this weekend we have Block Club, not Stock Club, Block Club. Stock Club is next week. This week is Block Club. And so it is going to be the first live stream where we dedicate every single minute and every single moment to real estate. Some of you know that recently I actually built from the ground. So I have been in real estate for a long time, but this is the first time that I've built a house from the ground up, bought the land, built the house, did no financing. In addition to that, I have broken ground on several other properties, and that's what we do, right? We reinvest back into ourselves, we reinvest back into our portfolios. We try to distance ourselves away from financing and banks because we don't want to give away free money. But more importantly, there's some lessons learned that came along with that. So, all I can do, and before I started to talk about actually building right? We can talk about turnkey. We can talk about where to look for, where to invest, different markets, why you don't want to get into hard money loans, all of that stuff. We can talk about all of that stuff, right? Why you don't see any real estate gurus anymore now that interest rates are up, how you going to be impacted by interest rates going down, what's going to happen, whether or not Trump or Kamala Harris wins the election, how that's going to impact your real estate portfolio, things like that, right? Should you buy a home now? Should you buy a home later? And so we're gonna have a series of live streams that we do inside of the Patreon that basically addresses everything financially related to real estate. In addition to Stock Club, where we talk about how you research the 8 things that you look for when you're looking to invest in a company, several things like that. So we got so much content. I do not invest your money for you. I just share with you my receipts and my life experiences, and then I'll let you take it from there. So if you want to rock out with a group of people that's going in the direction that you're going in, make sure you tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description. Again, the best time to join the Patreon is the beginning of the month. All right. And then last but not least, come and see me in person. Come kick it with Anton on November 2nd. November 2nd, we're going to be in Atlanta. And December 14th, we're going to be in Detroit. And then we're going to be touring all next year. So make sure you guys get your tickets. Discount code. That link is pinned to the top of the chat as well as in the description. Come and kick it with me in person. I would love to see you there. And then hopefully we can try to do a Patreon meetup somewhere around that. So what up, friends and family? Now that we got the housekeeping out of the way. Y'all said the view is beautiful. Yeah, you can see the actual sunrise. I'm assuming that by the time that we finish, this live stream, the sun will be up and you guys will be on your way having a good time. Let me acknowledge the super chats first, before we get started. And then I'm gonna acknowledge I'm gonna acknowledge the cash apps and the super chats, and then we're gonna get it popping. First and foremost, I want to say I appreciate you, ESDC, for your consistency and always holding me down. Thank you, my friend. Mike, that dude is one of the most consistent people that I've ever met in my entire life. Thank you, Mike, that dude, for holding me down. Also, um, early super chats. P Shank, shout out to P Shank, says good morning, Mr. Anton Daniels. Great VP debate last night, wasn't it? It was pretty awesome. We live streamed it on After Hours. For those of y'all that's not subscribed to After Hours, come and kick it with us. Terrence Smith, shout out to Terrence Smith. I appreciate you also. And then Neutral, is this your first time super chatting? Because I can't see it on my end. I'm looking at it from a different view. Says morning Anton and the Chasers. Shout out to the Chasers. Shout out to my community and my people and everybody that's a part of the Bag Chasers. I appreciate you. I love you. I think that you guys are the greatest on earth. What up to the chat? What up? What up? What up? Before we get started with the show, Terrence Smith says, shout out to you, Anton, 31-year-old man here trying to transition from the steel mill and the IT. Oh, so you're trying to take the Anton Daniels blueprint? Because I was in the steel mill. You still young. You're very, very young. Trust me. Joined the Patreon a while ago. Is there a way I can get a call with you? Anybody that want to get in touch with me, you can email me at antondaniels413@gmail.com. The moderators will drop that inside of the chat. What up, Mel? Got his tickets to the Detroit show. I see you. Bim, Molly, Trini Life, Tootie Bug, Chris James. Is the Rolls Royce worth it? Absolutely. 100%. Yes. Well, let me refine that. Answer. It depends. It very much depends. If you got to stress out over it, it's not worth it. Anything that you got to stress out over, whether it's a woman or a car, it's not worth it. Trust me, it's not worth it. But if you can comfortably swing it and there's tax benefits that come along with it for a large vehicle that you're purchasing. And I'll say this for younger people, a lot of times when you're growing up, the first thing that you start thinking about is getting some kind of drop top or something like that, right? That's what you grow up thinking about. When you start getting used to sports cars and stuff like that, and I'm not saying that drop tops and stuff like that aren't fun because I got my share of toys too, obviously, but you start caring more about comfort, and that's where it really excels. That's when you start getting into the S classes, the Rolls Royces, the Bentleys, even the Bentleys. Bentleys is largely seeming like an older person's car, but I love the Bentley. I love the Continental GT. I love the Flying Spur. Not so much the Bentayga. I would get a Cullinan over a Bentayga, But, you know, you start getting into spaces where you're not really trying to make a big scene. You just trying to be really nice and comfortable and get to where you're going to get on that floating yacht. You know what I'm saying? So it's not a I want to be seen car. It's more of a I love living a life of luxury and I just like floating through the sky, but I want to get to where I want to get to clean. You know what I'm saying? So if you're trying to be loud, if you're trying to be really, really loud, then go and get you a Lamborghini that's lime green or something like that. You know what I'm saying? And that's cool too. I ain't tripping off that. But if you trying to be stately, then go and get you an S class or maybe even a Maybach or a Maybach or a Cullinan or something like that. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that it's not visible. I'm saying that it doesn't grab as much attention, but it's almost like if you know, they gon' the kids is gonna want to take the picture with the Lambo. The grown folks is gonna want to get inside of the Cullinan. When you got the stars in the top, it's just different. Honest to God, it's different. So yeah, man, it's that it's really nice, especially the black badge. The black badge is absolutely great. Anyways, I love you guys. I appreciate y'all. Let's go ahead and get inside of the show. And then I'll continue to read super chats throughout the show. Shout out to Bitcoin Brown says, AD, how's a sphere? I've been wanting to go over to Vegas to check it out in person. Also, shout out to you for always inspiring us and never to stop chasing. The sphere is absolutely awesome. There's so much being built in Vegas right now, bro. It's a lot going up. You know, the Oakland A's gonna be here. Tropicana getting torn down. Grand Prix is here. You know what I'm saying? F1 racing. The Raiders Stadium is incredible. The Sphere is better to look at night, so it's absolutely awesome. It's actually on the other side of the strip. On the side where the New York's, it's not on that side, but it's across Las Vegas Boulevard on that other side. It's better to view at night. I haven't gotten a chance to check out a show there yet, simply because I'm out here for business and I've been working and taking care of business so much. I've been getting out and about, but I haven't had an opportunity to go and actually do a show there or go and see a show there. So it's pretty interesting. So shout out to you, Bitcoin Brown. I appreciate y'all. And then I'll be back in the studio tomorrow morning for our live stream. But make sure that y'all tune in to Let's Rant About It tonight. We got an episode that's premiering tonight. It's gonna be absolutely awesome. Obviously, I'm on it. Y'all gonna love it. I'll be watching it. Actually, I'll be off the plane. Yeah, I'll be off the plane. I'll be watching it live with you guys. So let's go ahead and get into the show, y'all. We got a full show that we got to get to. And then we're gonna run it up. So first things first is quick hits. Quick Hits is a segment of the show that we don't necessarily think that we need to dedicate an entire segment to each individual subject, but we definitely want to keep y'all in the loop of what's going on out in these streets. So first things first, y'all remember when I was telling y'all about the mail carrier, the postal worker that got killed on their job in Chicago because they robbing them for their master keys, and now they've gotten so bold and brazen to where they're basically taking their lives because they have no regard for human life. Well, guess what? It was a 15-year-old boy that decided to take the life of that mail carrier that they now caught.
Great to have you with us. I'm Joe Donlin.
And I'm Erica Sargent. More than 2 months after the shooting death of a postal worker on the city's south side, police tell us they found her killer in another state.
Our investigator Megan Hickey joins us at the post office in Roseland, where Octavia Redmond worked. And Megan, her friends and family were stunned by the news of this arrest today.
Right. They tell me not a day has gone by that they have not thought of Octavia Redmond, who was a very familiar and friendly face here. They still want to know why all of this happened, and they're still fighting for safety improvements for letter carriers.
Now we got to relive it again.
Letter carrier Elise Foster tells me she got the call about an arrest early this morning.
I talked to her husband, Demetrius Redmond, and first, that's my first call, let him know that my heart goes out to him and that, you know, it's a step in the right direction.
48-year-old Octavia Redmond was fatally shot multiple times while delivering mail in West Pullman on July 19th. The shooter's getaway vehicle was found abandoned and torched in the middle of a south side field. This surveillance video was the only look we had at the shooter, showing someone getting into a Dodge Durango before the shooting and then running across the street and out of view of cameras after shots were fired. CPD said they tracked this suspect down to Cedar Rapids, Iowa, where the 15-year-old was arrested on Monday.
It will never bring her back, that you know, it's a step in the right direction, that someone will pay for the vicious crime that they did.
Redmond's colleagues and Roseland customers alike
This has been my post office for 48 years.
were relieved and saddened.
When children commit adult crimes, then that's a whole different story, and it involves all of us because we are parents.
The boy was promptly extradited back to Chicago to face 1 count of first-degree murder. In juvenile court today, he was held in custody, and a follow-up hearing was set for November 1st.
You know, he took a life. Now his life is potentially going to be gone, you know, for the murder. And why? That's a question I'm asking. We all asking why. Why her? What did she do?
And Redmond's death reignited safety concerns here and across the city for letter carriers. Her colleagues are hoping that new legislation could bring some improvements. We'll have much more on that coming up at 6. But for now, live in Roseland, Megan Hickey, CBS News.
I think that people keep trying to make sense of something that's not sensible. You can't make sense of something that's not sensible. Monsters don't negotiate with civilians. Monsters are not trying to convince you and make sense of it. They don't think and be like, oh man, I don't want to take this person's life because I'm thinking about their family. You know what they do? Monsters do what monsters do. They kill people over nothing. They run to a different state. They never thought about what the consequences was going to be for the family or for themselves. And so that's why a monster is called a monster. It's almost like jealousy. Like, it's crueler than the grave, and it's something that you'll never be able to understand. So, you know, all you're gonna do is wreck your brain trying to make sense of it instead of trying to control it and lock monsters up where they need to be locked up. Unfortunately, you're talking about a 15-year-old, meaning that the monster begat a monster. It was somebody else that had and raised that monster, and they probably was trying to protect them. And you trying to make sense of evil. You'll never be able to make sense of evil, ever. In addition to that, all right, staying in Chicago, people are debating whether or not Shotspotter, right? We know that crime is up. They keep trying to tell us, no, crime is down. We're going to figure it out. No, it's not. It's up. And one of the people was a 19-year-old woman or girl that was murdered in Chicago, and they didn't even discover her body until way later when a neighbor was walking a dog and just decided to walk up on the body, and it just so happened to be this 19-year-old girl. And one of the things that's at the forefront of this is the removal of Shotspotter, while at the same time, Brandon Johnson just recently signed a $100 million new contract. In addition to the contracts that he's already spent and paid, the almost $1 billion that they've already spent on the migrant crisis, but yet they took away Shotspotter, which helped assist the police department and help keep residents safe by being able to identify when crime is taking place, for them to be able to sort through, because they already short 2,000 police officers. And so this is causing a ripple effect in Chicago. Residents and legislators are debating over why Brandon Johnson, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, used his executive action to be able to take away Shotspotter.
Well, decommissioning of the city's Shotspotter system is being blamed for the death of a woman over the weekend on the southeast side. The victim's family, as well as a Chicago alderman, believe the woman stood a greater chance of being found alive if the city hadn't canceled that system.
And WGN's Dana Rebick is at City Hall, joining us now with more on this story. Dana?
The family of Sierra Evans is busy planning her funeral, also a vigil that will be held tomorrow night. But they have already voiced concerns over the extended amount of time it took for her body to be discovered, as city aldermen are now also weighing in on the loss of Shotspotter.
Obviously, we're going to find justice for her. We need to know who did this.
The family of 19-year-old Sierra Evans and city leaders speaking out on a tragedy they feel may have been avoided had Shotspotter still been active near the scene of her murder.
Peter Chico, the alderman of 10th Ward, think he remembered that there was a Shotspotter in that area, so he reached out to Sound Thinking and said, hey, is there still a Shotspotter there, and did it ping, although it's not attached to the police department anymore? And they did their due diligence, and yes, it did, and it pinged at 12:56 a.m.
Evans' body found in an alley in the 9500 block of South Avenue N in the East Side neighborhood 9 hours later near Claudia Romo's yard on Saturday morning.
That comes to show that we should not take anything like that off. It should be more instead of less, because you never know when it's going to happen. People that want to kill people are paying attention to stuff like that.
I mean, it's terribly unfortunate when there's any loss of life, especially a young life. As we think about Shotspotter, there were a number of us who had concerns about it being the best deal for the city, the best product for the city.
Alderman Andre Vasquez, who has been vocal against Shotspotter and Sound Thinking, its parent company, feels the city is now in a vulnerable position.
If we knew that we were looking to remove Shotspotter, we should have had a task force in place, a request for proposal, a competitive bid to identify what comes next, so you don't have any gap in between services.
But at least CPD would have been on the scene and CFD would have been there, whatever, to try to save her.
As the family grieves, we learned of yet another shooting less than a mile away at 2 o'clock this morning. A man shot in the chest, now in critical condition.
And just like today, you saw something happening, they feel comfortable about going back and shooting again.
I just want to know, like, why? Like, why is this happening? Like, the family did.
Listen, it ain't even nothing else to talk about and nothing else to discover. There's nothing else to talk about. It's blame to go around for everybody. It's blame to go around for the culture and how bad and toxic it is. It's blame to go around to the mayor and the legislators for actually defunding the police and defunding tools for the police, while at the same time supporting the migrant crisis. It's blame to go around for the residents to basically advocate and vote for the people that's removing the tools to keep y'all safe. Y'all voted for Brandon Johnson. I don't know how many times I got to tell y'all that. This is not new. You voted for your own demise. I don't feel sorry for Chicago. I don't feel sorry for Oakland. I don't feel sorry for New York. When they came in and they let all of these migrants and they worked with the Democratic Party, and y'all still voting for these people. We got a presidential election right now where people are sitting there telling me, well, you know what? I'm not even going to vote because it don't even matter. And one of the people that told me that was one of the very people that's living in Chicago, talking about how they complaining about crime and what they legislators is doing. How you gonna say that you not voting and you don't really care and you don't care to inform yourself, and then at the same time, in the same conversation, you sitting there complaining about whether or not they removing certain things from your neighborhood and why they should be. You can't complain about something that you got the power to control. And it ain't just the legislators. The legislators is a reflection of the people. If I see bad legislators, if I see bad people in office that's governing over you, whether it's the governor, the mayor, the city council, or whatever, they are a reflection of the people that voted for them. You reap what you sow. The seeds that you sow, it either is going to bring some thorns or it's going to bear fruit. That's just the reality. Stop complaining about something that you got control over. And then last but not least, the Bronx. Crime is rising in the Bronx. Check it out.
Even though murders have gone down in the 48th and 52nd precincts, they have more than doubled in the 46th precinct. Shooting incidents have increased in all three of them.
It's hard.
A shot to the head instantly killed Evanly Vargas' son, 29-year-old Devante Serrano. It happened just steps away from his home near East 182nd Street and Mapes Avenue in the Bronx Sunday afternoon.
The guy was gonna kill me, and he came, and look what happened to him.
26-year-old Herman Gale, who police sources tell us turned himself in on Monday, was charged with murder and criminal possession of a weapon. Friends and family of Serrano say they didn't know each other.
He came with his bike behind me. He blocked me. I'm like, hello, you don't see me here? So he started talking crazy, calling me names. So Devante came and told him, say sorry to my mom. He just got on his phone and said, bring my gun down.
Another New York City.
So it was a confrontation, and instead of people walking away and keeping it moving, somebody came in and said, hey man, you better apologize to my mom. And then it went up from there. I don't know how many examples I got to share with y'all. I don't know how many times I got to tell y'all to stay away from crash dummies. Ain't nobody talking no more. The migrants got guns. The 15-year-olds got guns. Ain't no, look, I know a lot of y'all been taught, be strong for my. The rules of the game is different now. It used to be only the big shots and the big dogs was able to secure the pistols and stuff like that. And people was afraid of the police and getting caught and dying and going to jail and all of that stuff. Ain't nobody scared of nothing no more. Nobody is scared of you. I don't care if you 7 feet tall. I don't care if you a dwarf. Nobody gives a flying F anymore. The rules of the game is different. You're going to have to learn to play chess, not checkers. Real talk. The goal is to get home, and then we're going to assess how we can do things differently to even prevent ourselves from being around crash dummies. That's the new move. Ladies and gentlemen, that's your quick hits. It's crazy out here. Let me read a few of these super chats and then let me go ahead and get into the show. Enos Luby says, my channel just got monetized. It's been hard work. Let me get a round of applause for the chasers and for everybody that got their channel monetized. Shout out to you, Enos Luby. Congratulations, my friend. The work is just starting. Don't think that you made it. The work is just starting. Annie Marie says, best morning show live ever. Shout out to my girl, Annie Marie. And Enos Luby says, I listen to just about every day to your words. Kick me in the A sometimes, but I'm so thankful for you. I'm so thankful for your don't miss laser focus, which has kept me focused. Well, listen, I got to do it. If I got to continue to push y'all, then that's what we gonna do. All right. Congratulations, man. That's absolutely awesome, and I'm happy for you. Make sure y'all join the Bag Chasers. Link is in the description as well as pinned to the top of the chat. All right, y'all. Let's go ahead and get started with the show. So first things first, before we get into the debate, I got to give y'all an update on what's going on with the port strike. So with this whole port strike, I want to say that the Biden administration finally has had a conversation and they finally said something. Remember when I was saying, hey, man, if we really want to show some presidential zeal and we want to get this thing solved, there is no bigger issue than to address what is happening at the ports on the East Coast all the way down to Texas. Well, the Biden administration recently came out and they said that they're standing by the workers. Surprise, surprise.
The White House put pressure on US port employers Wednesday to secure a labor deal with striking dock workers. A strike by the International Longshoremen's Association, or ILA union, has blocked everything from food to automobile shipments across dozens of ports from Maine to Texas. Analysts have warned it will cost the economy billions of dollars a day. One data firm found that more than 38 container vessels were already backed up at US ports by Tuesday. That compared to just 3 on Sunday before the strike. President Joe Biden said Tuesday foreign ocean carriers have made record profits since the pandemic when longshoremen put themselves at risk to keep ports open. He added it's time workers were offered a strong and fair contract.
It's the same narrative. It's the same narrative when he was talking about the UAW. It's the same narrative when he was on the campaign trail when they always say that same slogan, make rich people pay their fair share. It's the same slogan when they say, oh man, you know what? We're reducing inflation and we're allowing for families to be able to provide for themselves while at the same time increasing costs. It's the same rhetoric. And you know what's so irresponsible about this president and this administration is that they pick sides instead of trying to come to they're more concerned about votes than they are about fixing a problem. Because it's not about wages. It's not about any of that stuff. It's about how do you come to an amicable conclusion to allow for the United States of America and for capitalism to work effectively if you do it the right way. Look, everybody in America, from fast food workers to port workers, are going to say, oh, I deserve more. I am vital to the economy. You know what longshoremen are saying? Objectively speaking, you know what longshoremen are saying? They're saying, without us, this country don't run. You know what nurses said? Without us, this country don't run. You know what's happening over in hospitals? Hospitals are shutting down. You know what UAW workers were? We built this country. We are the middle class. Stellantis is laying off. You know what fast food workers said? Man, we were the ones that was here during the pandemic. We're essential workers. We deserve $25 an hour plus overtime. Now they moving all of the restaurants out of California, and they you know what gig workers said? We were the ones that was essential to the economy. Without us, everything don't run. Well, over in New York, they're trying to make them W-2 employees instead of 1099. Everybody is essential to everything. And I know that people like, hey, listen, this is what it is. And again, I am sympathetic to the fact that as union members or as workers, you have the right to negotiate on the behalf of what you think. And that's not even what we're talking about right now, because I'm gonna get to that in the next segment. But I'm talking about the responsibility of our legislators, and more importantly, the President of the United States of America, who don't even speak on the issue. He tweeted it. He wrote about it on social media like a bad chick. And instead of amicably behind the scenes trying to make sure that he negotiate with both so that they can both come to a conclusion, and maybe he can help and incentivize one or the other to continue to come, so we can get our ports back open instead of it costing us 5, 6, 7 billion dollars a week. He picking sides on social media like a bad chick, like a baby mama.
The White House said Biden also directed his team to monitor for potential price gouging activity that benefits foreign ocean carriers. The ILA represents 45,000 port workers and launched its strike just after midnight Tuesday. They took action after negotiations with the US Maritime Alliance, or USMX, for a new 6-year contract collapsed. The USMX had offered the union a 50% wage hike, but ILA leader Harold Daggett said the union is pushing for more. He wants a $5 per hour raise for each year of the new 6-year contract and an end to port automation projects that threaten union jobs. He said the dock workers were prepared to fight as long as necessary to get the wages and protections they want. The strike is the ILA's first major stoppage since 1977 and affects 36 ports.
This administration can't win for losing. Everything that we see happening in this administration is a first. The Teamsters don't embrace and don't endorse Kamala Harris the first time since 96. First time that we had a port workage stoppage in the last 50 years. Can't get nothing done. Can't get a thing done to save their life. The only thing that we can get done is to make sure that Ukraine got funding, because they're going to fight for that. They'll open up the borders in order to fight for that. Bipartisan agreement, or we going to keep the borders open. This administration can't get nothing done. Nothing. Never, ever. And this massive inflation is on the way. Watch.
JP Morgan analysts estimate the walkout could cost the American economy roughly $5 billion a day. The National Retail Federation called on Biden's administration to use its federal authority to halt the strike. Republicans have also called on Biden to end the strike, warning of its impact on the economy. Biden has repeatedly said he will not do so. The US Department of Agriculture said Tuesday it does not expect significant changes to food prices or availability in the near term.
Let me look at it from a different angle. Just want to make sure that we get in this whole thing, because basically docs on the West Coast who recently actually ratified a deal after the pandemic, and different ports are now saying that they have capacity and they're willing to accept cargo coming in from their side, even though we know this is still going to impact the United States of America in a major scale.
And of course, the port strike has ripple effects on the other side of the country, as diverted freight may also flow through the ports in Los Angeles and Long Beach. Here to talk about the preparations is Mario Cordero. He is Port of Long Beach, California CEO. And of course, he has had firsthand experience in port worker labor negotiations, given that West Coast dock workers signed their contracts last year. So let's talk about that, though, that diverted cargo. A number of importers diverting to the West Coast ahead of the anticipated strike, which has begun as of 12:01 a.m. today. How much capacity does your port have to handle that diverted cargo?
Well, thank you, number one, for this invitation to comment on the question. So right now, we are very fluid. Right now, our terminal capacity at the Port of Long Beach is about 70%. So given the historical number of containers that we have moved, particularly for the month of August, I think that we're in a very good position to, again, handle any continued surge that comes to the Port of Long Beach.
In terms of...
So basically what he's saying is, hey, what they don't want, we'll go ahead and take it over here. Have y'all ever seen The Wire season? I think it was season 2. Season 2, somebody actually said it inside of the chat, the Sabatkas. Listen, I love the classics. I love the classics. I love all of that, right? And in season 2 of The Wire, basically they were losing jobs because, they couldn't get the funding from the federal government in order to make sure that they built the port. So basically what happened was they resorted to dealing drugs and becoming drug dealers so that they can then grease the palms of the politicians to make sure that they get the funding so that they can expand the ports and be able to accept more freight, right? Otherwise, everybody was basically suffering. People was on furlough. People was laid off. They would only get 1 or 2 days a week. And so they would supplement their income by basically stealing off the port or doing deals or aligning themselves with mass drug dealers to make sure that they could ship certain containers in and that it wouldn't get caught. And so it was a really, really good twist to the saga, and one of the reasons why I say that it's the best series of all time. But my point is that there's always now going to be competition, but part of the competition came from the fact that they're looking at the deal that they got on the West Coast and saying, listen, we 45,000 strong, and if we don't get at least more than them, then we gonna run up the bag and we gonna shut down this entire country on the East Coast all the way down to Texas.
The potential for a massive raise on the East Coast, Mario. If, longshoremen are getting, 80%, even 50% more than they already were here, does that then cause problems for workers on the West Coast who already signed their contract? Will they feel like they're, at a disadvantage?
Well, like we've indicated, the West Coast labor negotiations thankfully came to a conclusion. So I think from that respect, there's already labor peace here in the West Coast. As to whether or not that is further impacted, in my opinion, it won't. But again, that's a question for the labor leaders here.
At the end of the day, one of the sticking points here is the use of automation here along the ports as well. And how much is this likely to become a sticking point as this kind of tension between labor and employers continues on? Because ultimately, it's that automation that is lowering costs and making deliveries much easier.
Well, the question of automation, robotics has been an ongoing discussion in various sectors of the workforce. And of course, this includes the dock workers. So this has been a conversation for a number of years. It's going to be continued, a contentious discussion. So I think, again, hopefully the parties come to a meeting of the minds and a compromise with regard to how this looks moving forward.
Yeah, everybody wants to get this deal done, so I'm not sure. They're asking for a lot, and I'm actually gonna go over what the union bosses description of it was because I've been kind of holding on to that and saving that because we had so much to cover. Let me also say this before we go over to the next thing. If you are in the chat, and shout out to my chat because my chat is the co-host of the show, um, and you're looking for me to respond to what you want to say, you're going to have to be able to write in full sentences, periods, commas. I know that we do abbreviated things and all of that stuff, but some of y'all just be talking. And I need y'all to learn how to communicate effectively, even if you're writing. Let me give you an example. Okay, let me see if I can find one. Listen to this guy. Be First IS says, you agreed to paying everyone but BLK. Black, you draw an airliner. I don't know even what that means. Y'all gonna have to learn how to communicate because again, the chat is my co-host of the show. Y'all gonna have to learn how to type in full sentences, periods, commas, spell checks, whatever. Get Grammarly. I don't care what you do. Type it out in your notes, run it by your nephew, tell your little niece to go and spell check you before you put it out on the streets. But if you want to participate in the show, you're going to have to learn how to communicate effectively. We don't speak Ebonics over here. We don't speak Spanish. We don't speak abbreviated sentences and we don't shortcut. All right. You're going to have to learn how to how to communicate effectively because I can't read that BS. I can't read it. You know what I'm saying? That's right, J6. Use that edumacation. Use that edumacation. And I appreciate you participating in the chat, but all I'm saying is if you want me to address what you're saying, say it clearly. I'm more likely, I'm more likely going to address you. Shout out to Lord Cass. This is their first live. Listen, Lord Cass, understand this. I am not one that's just gonna focus on the news. I will dress you down and run it up at the same time. You're going to have to learn how to communicate. You can't even get a job like that. Do you know what happens if you go into the I've interviewed people, right? And somehow, some way, in previous positions, we had diversity, equity, and inclusion. They said, yeah, you got to let them in. We got to at least interview them, even if we don't hire them. I said, okay, all right, cool. So we'll talk to them. So then I talk to them, right? I talk to them and I say, all right, cool. Listen, sir. You call them sir, they think that you disrespect them. I ain't no sir. I ain't no sir. I'm sorry? Don't call me sir. What you trying to say? I'm old? Well, first of all, yes, you are old. Okay? Now you better gather yourself before I send you back to fries over there. I'm trying to give you an opportunity. All right, this diversity, equity, and inclusion program ain't gonna last much longer. So we killing affirmative action. This is what I was thinking in my mind. I didn't say it to him. I ain't no sure. So, I'm sorry. You do know that is a term of respect, correct? I don't care what you. I'm sorry, Dano. Book him, Dano. Get him up out of here. Then the next person come in. What up? What up? What up, homie? What's going on? Embarrassing me in front of my colleagues, wanting to do the Obama. No. And you smell like weed. And your lips are black. And your teeth are dirty. Dano, book him. Get him up out of here. And then this next guy come in. Yes, reading is fundamental. I know in school they kept telling you, I ain't gonna need no math. I don't need to read past third grade level. Now look at you. You can't type in the chat. Every time you text the chick, she like, look at this dummy. Can't get a job. Fair wage for the workers. When I would grow up and stuff like that, and I run into people today, and they say, Anton, you was always the smartest amongst us. No, I just was reading the books. It's an effort thing. You don't, it's not about smart. Everybody can learn how to read more effectively. If you dedicate yourself and you work on your craft, you'll get better at it. So if you read more, you'll be able to communicate more effectively. If you speak and you do public speaking and you go and you research exactly how to do things a little bit differently, or you look for growth, everybody don't have to accept your crash dummy style. Everybody don't have to accept the fact that you're a crash dummy. Just because you stupid don't mean that everybody got to accept it. Give me a second. Let me go off for a little minute. Some of y'all might be new to this, but this is what we do over here. We get to the thick of things. We never gonna change. It's just the way that it is. Everybody don't have to accept that you dumb. Oh, you think you better than us? Yeah, I am. And she is too. And you keep telling her, baby, baby girl, you, your standard's too high. Now, in this instance, I don't think so. Because all she's asking for is somebody that knows how to say, hi, hello, how are you doing? Without saying, you know what I'm saying? Can you have friends? I don't see no ring on your finger. Sir, she said that she was married. Whether she's married or not, that means she's not interested. If you can't talk and speak 5 sentences, which is a paragraph, without saying, you know what I'm saying? That's an issue. That's an issue. It's an issue. It is. It is. And it's not something that we can't solve. And so I understand that we have to make some adjustments and we have to do things differently. And these are the same people that saying, I'll vote for Kamala Harris because she black. We got to do things differently. That's all. And maybe you'll hear from me because I know you don't want to hear from a white man because then you're going to say that he talking down on you and he racist and all this stuff. Come on, man, just get it together. Everybody don't hate you. Some people just want to tell you the truth and you can't handle the truth. Your mama didn't tell you the truth. Your daddy didn't tell you the truth. Uncle Anton is now telling you the truth. You talk retarded. You don't know how to go on a job interview. Stop wearing Jordans to the job interview. Brush your hair and comb your teeth. Comb your teeth. Get that debris up out of there. Don't brush it. Comb it. Comb your teeth. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, neither here nor there. You don't support black businesses. Anyways, let me go ahead and read a couple of the super chats. Oh man. High Tolerance says, good morning, AD. Gonna be in the whip. Plus, I gotta knock out some CBTs. I have no idea what that is. Chat activity will be minimal, but y'all say on our resident lollipop head, neck, Eric D be great. They going at Eric D already? Cynthia Haynes says, thank you, sir, for the grammar class. I really appreciate your consideration and wisdom. See, now everybody gonna be typing slower. Shout out to Cynthia, because they want a spell check now. That's what we should do. We should be careful and we should treat each other how we want to be treated, with respect. Mark Alexander says, there's a YouTuber with the best coverage of the port strike. His channel is called What's Going On with Shipping. Good videos to review. Thank you, Mark. I'll check it out. Send it to me. Philly Fox in the building says, so let's get rid of the iPhone because it's a form of automation. By the way, you inspire me, sir. Thank you for calling me sir. About to be a jet bag chaser and have cerebral palsy, but I run it up. Shout out to you. I appreciate you. Where do you get your black t-shirts from? I'll sell you some. It's coming soon. Merch is coming soon on the Anton Daniels website. Make sure y'all hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. Let's get straight to the next thing. So before we get to the JD Vance thing, I want to show you who the union boss is. Because a lot of people are trying to figure out who is the person that's leading all of these strikes. Some of y'all may have even seen this guy on TikTok or Instagram in certain clips. So I went and found the original. I found it a couple days ago prior to this strike, but I went and found the original. And this is the union boss, okay? His name is Harold Daggett, and he's the one that's basically instituting this strike because he said that they want a 77% raise over 6 years, and they want to reduce automation. Make sure y'all hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. I'm going to scrub this towards a little bit further towards the middle/end so you can see exactly what he's trying to talk about, all right? Let me fast forward this a little bit. Kind of talking like a mobster, to be honest with you.
To the electric, and he was fried to death. Wife, 4 kids.
Let me back.
Since 1967, elements of technology that have been good for the industry.
Technology that's been good for the industry.
You got on them Cardis too.
That's a tough one because I got to be careful because I'm against automation. Semi-automation is automation. It's just the back avenue had to come in and give you automation without you knowing it. But certain technology, yes, is good because computers, we get more work done with computers. We have doubled the cargo. We have, if you look now, we have ships that are being built by these companies. Check this out. That whole 22,000 containers. It's a floating city. They had to take the Bayonne Bridge and raise it way up here so the ships could go under it to get in here to unload them. 22,000 containers.
That's a lot.
It's amazing how we came from the first ship with just a small amount of containers, 25, 50 boxes on them. So look at the future now. Look at the future in money. They went from millions of dollars to billions and billions of dollars. So the world is going by real quick.
Is it safe to say that you're not against technology for efficiencies, but you're person first, people first, like protecting jobs and families while embracing technology to keep the workflow efficient?
Let me explain a little bit about this. The first cranes that went up with diesel engines up there. As time went on, they got rid of diesel. Today, it's electric. The jobs on the waterfront are very dangerous. Just 2 years ago, one of my mechanics fell into the electric and he was fried to death. Wife, 4 kids. Happens all the time on the piers. People getting killed. There was a woman checker. She was checking the boxes when a guy had a high-low with 2 stacks of steel. He should have been riding in reverse. He was looking through the bundles, knocked her down. He didn't even see her, dragged her under the high-low in front of her son, ripped her apart and killed her. It happens. It happens down here all the time. I had 2 guys killed right in front of me. It happens. We have a group in our local 1804 days called the Lashes. The most dangerous job on the waterfront. When they put the containers on top of the hatch covers, all the way up high, you see them in the container ship, they gotta be all lashed down in case the storm and the seas are real rough. The ship is doing this and this. If they're not lashed down right, those containers are gonna go over into the ocean and sink. Millions of dollars of cargo sunk. So what? My men gotta go out there, it's 0 degrees, there's ice on top of the container, it's freezing, with metal bars and hooks, safety lines on them, way up high, and they gotta put them down tight, get up on the box, slide on the ice up on top. Completely dangerous. That's in the north. In the south, it could be 95, 105 degrees. Soaking wet down there. They got a guy that goes around, they call him the water boy, giving water to the men so they don't dehydrate. Or the ones that work in the hull of the ship, they get water. It's different elements. You have us here in the north, Canada, you have from Virginia down, all the way to Houston, hot. Florida, everything's hot. Different elements. Dangerous job. We've had 17 people killed in the last 3 years. That's 17 people that didn't come home. We just had a kid killed in Houston. Young kid, a big roll of paper, weighed a ton, rolled off on top of him, killed him. That's why I fight. I fight for jurisdiction, I fight for safety. I fight for these to be compensated with good salaries. These companies are making billions of dollars. They should take us along. We brought them to where they are. Now they want to get rid of us? That's not fair. Not fair at all. And this union's been around close to 200 years. So you can see why I'm always fighting.
Why do you think?
But is that not a case for automation? Because on one hand, I understand the union, and the union is saying, well, I'm fighting for my members because I think that they should get paid more. Fair enough. Fair enough. But in order for you to get paid more, it's 2 things that have to happen. We have to have better safety, and we got to be more efficient because we have to be able to justify the wages. Otherwise, we got to pass that cost over to the consumers, and we got to pass it over to whoever it is that's shipping containers here. And obviously, that's where prices raise and inflation goes up because we got to pay y'all more. We got more deaths. We got all of this stuff. So in order for us to reduce that, you have to be able to have a better safety plan, which is an advocate for automation. And then you also have to make sure that you can pay these people by allowing for them to do things more efficiently. And you got to be able to get more cargo in because you got to justify the costs. So in a sense, I understand what he's saying because he's saying, listen, these jobs are dangerous. But he's also speaking to where it seems like he's advocating for automation, but he's not because he doesn't want to actually reduce the amount of workers, which reduce the amount of revenue that the union is taking in. You see what I'm saying? So it's kind of a catch-22.
You haven't had to strike since then.
Because you had leaders like me, and the companies got smart and said, we don't want to go through another 3 months strike. Let's negotiate in good faith. Back then, the companies didn't make the money that we make today. So we negotiated in good faith. We went with 6-year contracts. And we got $1 raise, $1.50 raise for 6 years. It was great. It was a lot of money compared to 80 cents for 3 months. But today's world, it's changing into the future. They're not making millions no more. They're making billions. And they're spending it fast as they make it. I want a piece of that for my men. Because when they made their most money was during COVID. When my men had to go to work on those piers every single day when everybody stayed home and went to work. Not my men. They died out there with the virus. We all got sick with the virus. We kept them going. From Canada to Maine to Texas, Great Lakes, Puerto Rico, now the Bahamas, everybody went to work during COVID. Nobody stayed home. Well, I want to be compensated for that. I'm not asking for the world. They know what I want. They know what I want. And if they don't, well, then I have to go into the street and we have to fight for what we rightfully deserve.
Do you think, this is my last question, do you think the threat of the strike is, they can understand the significance of that based on the recent things that have happened, like our Key Bridge, we're from Maryland, our Key Bridge collapsing and it just stopping all the ships from being able to deliver?
I'm glad you brought that up, because I would like to tell you something.
Okay.
When that bridge fell, my longshoremen are on this side of the bridge, no work, no salaries. Biden called me up on the phone, President Biden. Harold, I got the money.
I didn't know about this part. I didn't scrub through the whole thing because I don't have time to scrub through every single thing that we talk about. I just so happened to stumble upon this conversation with Biden. Okay, so wait a minute. Last segment, Biden had basically tweeted, or somebody on his behalf, it's under his name, so Biden tweeted and said he's staying with the workers. He's now talking about, remember when that bridge fell in Baltimore? And he's talking about the port, and he's saying that his longshoremen that was on the other side, they didn't have no work, they didn't have no money, they wasn't making no money as a result of it. Now he's bringing Biden into it. All right, let me rewind this a little bit because I want to get the whole thing.
Biden called me up on the phone, President Biden. Harold, I got the money to build a new bridge. I go, oh. What about my longshoremen? They're out of work now. They didn't cause no problem. Well, he goes, I got the money for building a new bridge and getting the bridge that's in the water out of there. I ask you one more time, President, what about the men whose families now have no money coming in? Well, you know, if there was an explosion on a ship, maybe I can get the money. Listen, you're supposed to be a friend of the ILA. You came to me.
You're supposed to be a friend to the ILA. That's the name of the union. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. Come on now. See, this is the part that we never get. I'm actually starting to like this guy because at the very least, he's just telling it like it is from his view and his perspective. I may not necessarily agree with everything that he says. A lot of people may not necessarily like him because they mad that the ports are shutting down and their life is going to be affected. But he's just being real. He said, Biden called me and I said, listen, what about my men and what about the people that's losing money as a result of this?
When you wanted the AFL CIO backing, I got it for you. You called me in the kitchen, you thanked me 1,000,000 times. I'm telling you, my members need help. Well, let me see what I can do. In politics, that means you're not getting it, okay? I opened up a fund with management after the first pandemic. Let me see how much money's in that fund. I called them up. They called me back. $300 million. Wow, are you kidding me? We put $300 million in there? Yeah. Well, I like to take some money out of there and pay for those families in Baltimore. Well, Harold, it's only for pandemic. Well, what about we get your lawyers and my lawyers and any disaster, nature disaster, whatever, we can draw from it. I have no problem as long as the lawyers work it out. They worked it out one day. It cost me $1.2 million every week to pay for their families. Plus, they were allowed to go to unemployment. And it's over now. They're back working. The ships are going in and out. I never got no help from the government. We did it on our own, management and union. That's what we're supposed to be doing. Work.
That's why the Teamsters is back in the ILA, and the Teamsters also refused to endorse Kamala Harris the first time since 1996. So they scratched your back when you called them and you said, hey, man, I need your backing in order for me to get in office. And then when they said, hey, we need you to make sure that our workers is taken care of, you was like, Politics is so dirty. It's so dirty.
Working together. And I hope we get back into that right realm.
Do you think
that was in Baltimore?
Right. So now the federal government basically they created a supervillain. Now they created a supervillain and they want 77% raises and they don't want no automation.
What was the question again?
Well, it was just about, like, I remember, like, how significantly it impacted our businesses, like the supply chain, because I live on the Chesapeake Bay, and all the ships were just waiting on the other side.
Let me explain something to you. These people today don't know what a strike is.
Right.
When my men hit the streets, from Maine to Texas, every single port will lock down. You know what's gonna happen? I'll tell you. First week, be all over the news every night, boom, boom. Second week, guys who sell cars can't sell cars because the cars ain't coming in off the ships. They get laid off. Third week, malls start closing down. They can't get the goods from China. They can't sell clothes. They can't do this. Everything in the United States comes on a ship. They go out of business. Construction workers get laid off because the materials aren't coming in. The steel's not coming in. The lumber's not coming in. They lose their job. Everybody's hating the longshoremen now because now they realize how important our jobs are. Now I have the president screaming at me, I'm putting a Taft-Hartley on you. Go ahead. Taft-Hartley means I have to go back to work for 90 days. That's a cooling off period. Do you think when I go back for 90 days, those men are going to go to work on that pier? It's going to cost the company's money to pay their salaries. Well, they went from 30 moves an hour maybe to 8. They're going to be like this. Who's going to win here in the long run? You're better off sitting down and let's get a contract and let's move on with this world. And in today's world, I'll cripple you. I will cripple you, and you have no idea what.
Let me get a round of applause for Harold Daggett out here in this building. Let me get around. Listen, he said the president calling, I'm going to put a whatever, tariff Daggett or whatever the heck that he said on him. All right, so you can make me go to work for 90 days, but that don't mean that we going to do nothing. Let's get a deal done now. See? Now, you want to have a conversation about why the president of the United States of America is so important? Anton, they can't get done without Congress. Anton, it doesn't really matter. They're just a figurehead. Anton, it don't no, it matters. It matters in ways that we don't even know of because we're not even familiar with how they're being impacted across the United States of America. Don't sit here and tell me that competence is not important, that business acumen is not important. The fact that we have people, Tim Walz and Kamala Harris, in office asking to get a promotion to be president and vice president of the United States of America, but they've never ever worked in the private sector. Why are they talking about going after price gouging for the people as far as why these prices is going up in grocery stores? You got the whole port shut down on the East Coast during your administration. The whole port is shut down. And they making backdoor phone calls saying that what they is going to do and, hey, man, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. Nah, dog. No. And see, he telling it. I'm cool with it. I don't even care no more. See, now that I got the context and I got more insight, I can make a better decision. We have an administration that is in office right now. Over the last 3.5 years, they've been overseeing everything and they trying to tell you that inflation is down and everything is going to be cool. What's going to happen over the next 60 to 90 days? What happens if they on strike for another 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 10 weeks? How is that going to affect you as a consumer? And then I want you to come back and tell me that it don't really matter who you vote for president of the United States of America because it's going to go however it's going to go anyway. Make sure y'all hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. This is important. And I'm glad that it came out before the election so that we can actually understand who's pulling the strings behind and who's making the phone calls, because we need people like Harold Daggett, whether you like him or not, to tell the truth and shame the devil and give us some insight on what's really happening behind the scenes. This is the type of stuff I get excited about. Anyways, let me go ahead and read some of the super chats and then we're going to get over to a recap of the debate last night. JC says, exactly why the balloon popping show is taking us backwards. Can't watch it. The people on the show represents the worst in us. Well, you know that people is liking it, saying they be watching the Bad Girls Club. Raymond White says, JD Vance on the Iron Chef. Shout out to JD Vance. Jimmy Hoffa 2.0 says, CO Jacob. I feel you. And I'm with the workers right now. Tax Smith says, meanwhile, Amazon has humanoid bots climbing the shelves to get your packages in their R&D department. Automation might save some lives. I do think that technology and a change of technology is going to be a thing. There's no way that you can void it off, but I also understand what the workers are saying in this case. DJ Kane says, and we over here complaining about working at home. Yes, and people do be, and they be late to their meetings. Mark Alexander says, what up though? Shout out to my dog, Mark Alexander. Goes on to say, he's coming from the standpoint that the oligarchy made more in 2020 than the entire decade before. Then in 2021 made more than 2020. Lastly, the oligarchy is breaking the current contract rules. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you for giving us the insight. Gail Drake says, here's my point. If they get what they want, everyone will have to deal with higher inflation. So basically, we will be suffering with more inflation. No one cares about the middle class or the poor. Well, I've been telling y'all that for the last 3.5 years. Where y'all been at? We on season 4, episode 200. Shelly O says, AD, your investigative journalism skills are on 1,000. And this is why this is the greatest morning show on earth, because we're going to take the time and we're going to get the context so that we can then have the information and we can make an informed decision. Thank you for all of this info on the port worker strike. Eye-opening. You're welcome. Abe the Hunter says, don't worry about it. Port boss said, don't worry about it. Smooth Artist says, Port Union boss is Thanos in real. I kind of like him. I'm going to reach out to him. Ray says, he better be careful before he has a dock accident and they implant a trans she named Steve that wants more diversity on the docks. Nah, we ain't worried about it because you got to be tough. Some stuff you just naturally filter out the weak people. You know what I'm saying? DJ Olivet says he's pretty much proving Trump right on why manufacturers need to be here in the United States instead of overseas. That too. And 8-Bit says he's going to end up like Jimmy Hoffa. He'll be all right. Chris Bolt says, first chat to you. Can you imagine Kamala Harris sitting across from that port union boss? She would be eaten alive, and that's an American. Ain't no way Putin or Xi Jinping would respect her. Agreed. Make sure y'all hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. And also remember, best day to join the Pag Chasers, best day to join the Patreon is the beginning of the month. And get your tickets to come and see me, and make sure y'all put that discount code inside before you buy your ticket so that you can get that money's off. All right, let's get into Chef Boyard JD in the building. So JD Vance in the building. Shout out to JD Vance. You know, I was on Fox News yesterday. For those of y'all that's not familiar, I am a regular contributing member to the Fox News conglomerate now. Let me give myself a round of applause. Ain't no way in the world that a person like me, young Detroit dude, that wear Versace glasses and a Rolex watch in the morning, should be sitting there talking on Fox News, talking my talk. And they say, Anton, we love you. Can't wait to get you on the show again tomorrow. Ain't no way in the world I should be on there being a contributor. But I am. I'm here. Hard work, baby. Hard work. But I told them on Fox News yesterday, I said, listen, it really isn't even going to be a competition. The question is, how bad is JD Vance going to lap Tim Walz? How bad is he going to lap him? Now, I will preface this by saying that Tim Walz did well until about maybe 49 minutes in. Then he started fumbling, but we'll get there. I tried to find the best summary or the best thing that can give us some highlights on what happened during the debate, because we don't want to go through a whole 1.5 hour debate. We did that last night. So let me play some of the highlights for you guys, and then we're going to go from there.
Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future. Did Kamala Harris censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
That is a damning non-answer.
It's a damning non-answer for you to not talk about censorship. Obviously, Donald Trump and I think that there were problems in 2020. We've talked about it. I'm happy to talk about it further. But you guys attack us for not believing in democracy. The most sacred right under the United States democracy is the First Amendment. You yourself have said there's no First Amendment right to misinformation. Kamala Harris wants to use the power of government and big tech to silence people from speaking their minds. That is a threat to democracy that will long outlive this present political moment. I would like Democrats and Republicans to both reject censorship. Let's persuade one another.
Look at Tim Walz's face. And you see how they try to cloak it under this guise of, well, threatening and hate speech. Who's the determining party to say whether somebody is feeling threatened or hate speech? The very thing, the very freedoms that we're afforded and the blessings in this country is to be able to agree and disagree and to be able to get off your thoughts. But when we start to see censorship and election interference in a form of trying to prevent us from even being able to elect certain people into the federal government in the first place, or me personally, I've watched and witnessed 2021, 2022 in particular. You couldn't even say certain words on the internet. That's a fact. I've seen so many people get deplatformed. Even today. Listen, when Candace Owens started digging back into the archives and when she first started talking about 9/11, I was like, I just started looking. I was like, oop, this ain't gonna go well. Then she started digging further and started digging further and started digging further. And I'm not saying that she's wrong. I'm saying that censorship is real. The reason that we started saying the jab in the first place is because we couldn't say the real word. Think about that. In the United States of America, we couldn't even say the real word, and that's why we had to start saying the jab. I seen people getting kicked off the internet. I seen people getting kicked off of Twitter until Elon Musk bought it, and he exposed all of the papers, and everybody act like it wasn't a thing. I seen people lose their livelihoods. I seen people being told that they couldn't go to work if they said certain things. I see people lose their jobs for not agreeing with the alphabet community. Censorship is real. And Tim Walz is sitting there. When we go back and we look at this debate, I'm about to just play it out for like another 3 or 4 minutes before I stop it and react. When we go back and we look at this debate and we see how masterful, because see, watching it in real time, you can't really appreciate it. But going back and watching the replays and the highlights, you're like, wait a minute. This is literally a masterclass. He was bringing out things and communicating things that didn't even have anything to do with the question that was being asked, but it was important to the American people. And it reminded us why we were aggravated with this whole administration in the first place, because we got short memories. And he brought it back. He was hitting him with body shots. You know what body shots do? A lot of people are so enamored with the fact, if you ever watch boxing, if you watch Floyd Mayweather, right? The defense and the fact that he was picking you apart and he could see what you're doing in the counters and the body shots, it'll bring you to your knees. But a lot of people don't understand it because they're looking for the uppercut. They're looking for the overhand right. They want to see whether or not you're going to knock them out in the first 10, 15 minutes. J.D. Vance was Floyd Mayweather out there with Tim Walz, who is no slouch himself. Tim Walz was Canelo when he met Floyd Mayweather, and they thought that he was good until they put him in a ring with a master. That's the honest to God truth. Honest to God truth. He thought he was good. When he go back and he watch all of he gonna feel it in the morning. That's what we used to say. Listen, you fought a good fight, but you're gonna feel it in the morning. Body gonna be aching. You're gonna need some Epsom salt. Get him some milk. I'm telling you that he was sauteing this boy up. For the people that sat there and told me, I seen a CBS poll that said that it was even. That tells me how ignorant the people are and that they truly don't understand. They are fair weather fans that's just watching for the highlights and rooting for a team. They do not know what intelligence looked like. That boy with them blue eyes was sauteing that old man up in every way possible. Let me let this play out.
Let's argue about ideas and then let's come together afterwards.
You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. That's the test. That's the Supreme Court test.
Tim, fire in a crowded theater. You guys wanted to kick people off of Facebook for saying that toddlers shouldn't
Senator,
wear
the
masks.
governor does have the floor.
Fire in a crowded.
That every little talking point. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. He said, "Man, what? Man, do you know what the censorship is? Man, all right. I'm a fan. I'm a fan. I didn't know who JD was until he got picked by Trump, which in my opinion also shows great leadership to be able to select the right vice president at that time."
Theater, that is criticizing the policies of the government, which is the right of every American.
Senator, the governor does have the floor for 1 minute to respond to you.
Yeah, well, I don't run Facebook. What I do know is I see a candidate out there who refused, and now again, and this, I'm pretty shocked by this, he lost the election. This is not a debate.
If you become vice president, why should Americans trust that you will give Donald Trump the advice he needs to hear and not just the advice he wants to hear?
Well, first of all, Margaret, because I've always been open. And sometimes, of course, I've disagreed with the president, but I've also been extremely open about the fact that I was wrong about Donald Trump. I was wrong, first of all, because I believed some of the media stories that turned out to be dishonest fabrications of his record. But most importantly, Donald Trump delivered for the American people. Rising wages, rising take-home pay, an economy that worked for normal Americans, a secure southern border, a lot of things, frankly, that I didn't think he'd be able to deliver on. And yeah.
Now, let me stop this right now, right? Because I'm going to go to the actual full debate and I'm going to scrub through it and show you where this came from, because highlights don't tell the full story. And I wish y'all would have tuned into the after hours conversation where we broke it down and we did a recap last night while we also live streamed the debate. The reason why this is important is because Tim Walz, prior to this, they asked him to take accountability for some of the things that he said that he did, including traveling over in China during a certain time period when he didn't. And instead of Tim Walz taking accountability and saying, "Listen, man, I didn't do that. I was wrong. I was off." And then they went to JD Vance and then they had a conversation with him about whether or not he was right or some of the things that he said about Donald Trump in the past, in the 2016, during that particular election cycle. JD Vance said, "Listen, I was wrong. I didn't think that he would be able to get it done. I didn't think that he would be the right candidate for the job. And he proved me wrong. And he did this and he did that and he did this and he did that. I was wrong." And he was able to get that off because he just took accountability and then he added the context as to why he thought what he thought. But let me show you what Tim Walz's perspective was, right? Let me see if I can scrub through it. I'm going to try to find it really quickly for you guys. This, Jesus, let me see. See if I can find it specifically. Because I remember it was the moderator in the pink that asked the question. Is this it?
Price is higher.
No, it's not handing out. We have, first, let me say.
Nope, that's not it. Is this it?
Fertility treatments. I want us to make it easier for moms to afford to have babies. I want it to make it easier for young families to afford.
Give me a second. I got to scrub through it.
Spoke on this, so
yep, this is it. This is it right here.
I will say more than anything.
All right, let me get the beginning of it. Y'all got to get the full context of this part, and then we're going to go back to the basic highlights.
Gentlemen, on many topics, but right now I want to talk about personal qualifications. The vice president is often the last voice the president hears before making consequential decisions. We want to ask you about your leadership qualities. Governor Walz, you said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Yeah, well, and to the folks out there who didn't get at the top of this, look, I grew up in small rural Nebraska.
So instead of doing what JD Vance did, well, he didn't have the luxury of seeing how JD Vance answered prior to him answering. Instead of doing what JD Vance said and said, "You know what, I was off on this and I got proved wrong. And I'm glad that I got proved wrong because it was actually beneficial. Instead of just taking accountability, he did the Kamala Harris speech. Well, you know what? I grew up in a rural town in Pennsylvania or wherever the hell that he said. I grew up in this rural town, and you know, everybody likes to cut their lawn. Let me let you hear the full speech.
Town of 400, town that you rode your bike with your buddies till the streetlights come on, and I'm proud of that service. I joined the National Guard at 17, worked on family farms, and then I used the GI Bill to become a teacher, passionate about it, a young teacher. My first year out, I got the opportunity in the summer of '89 to travel to China. 35 years ago, be able to do that. I came back home and then started a program to take young people there. We would take basketball teams, we would take baseball teams, we would take dancers, and we would go back and forth to China. The issue for that was to try and learn. Now look, my community knows who I am. They saw where I was at. Look, I will be the first to tell you, I have poured my heart into my community. I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect, and I'm a knucklehead at times. But
before we get to the rest of this answer, let me just say he was doing well. He had a puncher's chance, and he was playing good defense. JD Vance's whole debate was all offense, no defense, all gas, no breaks. Warriors with KD, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, and Steph Curry, just putting up 140, 150 points a game, breaking records, running off, dancing, doing a shimmy as he was going down the court, letting it go, turning around, not even looking to see if it's going in, just operating with the utmost confidence. JD Vance was cooking. And I will give Tim Walz credit. Up until this point right here, he was doing well. This is where it all just started to fall apart for him.
But it's always been about that. Those same people elected me to Congress for 12 years. And in Congress, I was one of the most bipartisan people, working on things like farm bills that we got done, working on veterans benefits. And then the people of Minnesota were able to elect me to governor
And they let him
twice.
finish his answer.
So look, my commitment has been from the beginning to make sure that I'm there for the people, to make sure that I get this right. I will say more than anything, many times I will talk a lot. I will get caught up in the rhetoric. But being there,
Look at
the
JD.
impact it made, the difference it made in my life, I learned a lot about China. I hear the critiques of this. I would make the case that Donald Trump should have come on one of those trips with us. I guarantee you he wouldn't be praising Xi Jinping.
Nah, dog, this ain't got nothing to do with Donald Trump. Did you lie or didn't you lie? And when I was watching this live, I was thinking to myself, they're not going to let him get away with this. They're not going to let him do the same thing that Kamala Harris did, and she just able to dodge through certain questions, and she just not answering at all. They can't. No. Somebody need to press him. And thank God they did.
About COVID, and I guarantee you he wouldn't start a trade war that he ends up losing. So this is about trying to understand the world. It's about trying to do the best you can for your community, and then it's putting yourself out there and letting your folks understand what it is. My commitment, whether it be through teaching, which I was
And he
good
tried
at,
to use the
or
whole 2
whether it was
minutes,
being
too.
a good soldier or was being a good member of Congress, those are the things that I think are the values that people care about.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and missed.
No. He went from articulating himself to alls I said. When I see people starting to use a drawl, no, alls I said was. When they start using improper diction to communicate in a national debate that millions of people was watching at that time, no, alls I said was. This is when it fell apart for him. At this point, the debate was over because there was no catching up. You're not going to outshoot the Warriors.
Explain the discrepancy.
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
Hey, do you know what the worst thing about getting caught is? It's that awkward silence. It's the awkward silence. 100%. The worst thing about getting caught up, honest to God, is that when the moderators don't follow up, because it's bad, but it's not as bad as when somebody is going back and forth with you, because they give you time to posture, give you time to think. Shout out to Leland Brown, shout out to all the super chats. When people going back and forth with you, it's easier to figure it out. When they just let you die on that hill and it's like that awkward 2 to 3 second silence and you just doing like this. And your eyes getting big. All I said was, I just kind of misspoke. Dog, just take accountability. Doggy, just take accountability. Listen, I was off. I was wrong. I shouldn't have did it. That awkward silence.
Thank you, Governor.
No. Look, when you hit him with that, I don't know what I was doing. I misspoke. I don't know. My timeline was a little off. When you hit him with that look right there, that's the look of death. And I know he was melting inside. That is the thing that gets your heart beat up. It gets your heart beat up when they follow up with a question because they didn't let you get away with what you thought you was going to get away with.
The question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said.
What's what you said? What's what you said? What do you mean? And then they didn't let him get away with it. They just sat there and paused. And then he had to continue to do run-on sentences.
And misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
So you learned from China what it needed to be in governance. Oh God. Oh, I don't know why that's so funny. Because I learned a lot from China on what needs to be in governance. Let me get back to the highlights, y'all. Let me get back to the highlights.
When you screw up, when you misspeak, when you get something wrong and you change your mind, you ought to be honest with the American people about it.
You said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't.
I didn't know that they was going to play this again. I'm sorry.
Travel.
Another difference it made in my life, I learned a lot of COVID.
Before we talk about deportations, we have to stop the bleeding. We have a historic immigration crisis because Kamala Harris started and said that she wanted to undo all of Donald Trump's border policies.
Kamala Harris was the Attorney General of the largest state and a border state in California. She's the only person in this race who prosecuted transnational gangs for human trafficking and drug interventions. But look, we all want to solve this. Most of us want to solve this. That's why we had the fairest and the toughest bill on immigration that this nation's seen. But as soon as I was getting ready to pass and actually tackle this, Donald Trump said no, told them to vote against it because it gives him a campaign issue. It gives him to, what would Donald Trump talk about if we actually did some of these things?
The only thing that she did when she became the vice president, when she became the appointed border czar, was to undo 94 Donald Trump executive actions that opened the border. This problem is leading to massive problems in the United States of America.
We could come together and solve this if we didn't let Donald Trump continue to make it an issue. And the consequences in Springfield were the governor had to send state law enforcement to escort kindergartners to school.
Nope, that's not true. I wish they would fact check this guy, but I guess they agreed to no fact checking. But I'm assuming that the powers that be are going to do their job today and actually go through and fact check. The problem was that they shipped in 20,000 migrants. I ain't even going to address it because I already talked about it. J.D. Vance, he absolutely destroyed him in every way.
I believe Senator Vance wants to solve this, but by standing with Donald Trump and not working together to find a solution, it becomes a talking point. And when it becomes a talking point like this, we dehumanize and villainize other human beings.
Now, Governor Walz brought up the community of Springfield, and he's very worried about the things that I've said in Springfield. Look, in Springfield, Ohio, and in communities all across this country, you've got schools that are overwhelmed. You've got hospitals that are overwhelmed. You have got housing that is totally unaffordable because we brought in millions of illegal immigrants to compete with Americans for scarce homes. The people that I'm most worried about in Springfield, Ohio, are the American citizens who have had their lives destroyed by Kamala Harris's open border. It is a disgrace, Tim. And I actually think, I agree with you. I think you want to solve this problem, but I don't think that Kamala Harris does.
I don't talk about my faith a lot,
He
but
destroyed
Matthew
him.
25:40 talks about, to the least amongst us, you do unto me. I think that's true of most Americans. They simply want order to it. This bill does it.
No,
It's-
no. They don't want order to it. They don't want illegal migrants under the cloak and the guise of legality coming into this country and taking over American jobs and taking over resources from taxpayers, and it's being funded to the tune of billions and $42 billion as of right now, and that's not even accounting for the amount of resources that they take up that we can't quantify. No, they don't want order to it. They don't want it. They don't want order to your chaos. They don't want it. They never wanted 21 million plus people walking into this country unvetted and then them killing their daughters and their sons while they was walking down the street in Lake and Riley and all of these people. They don't want to have to learn new languages just because your kids is in there and they never asked you to be here in the first place. They want English to be the first language. English. They don't want migrant shelters. They don't want it. That's the last thing that they want. Of all of the problems that we have in this country, the last thing that they want is for somebody else to come in and take monies and resources that you paid into a system for to be used for their gain and their benefit. Got nothing to do with order. They never wanted it in the first place. Never wanted it. I don't know why that's so hard for people to figure out. They don't want it, and it's being forced upon them. You know what happens when a chick say, hey, I don't want you, and you force yourself on her? You go to jail. In any other situation, hey, man, I want that mango over there, and I don't want to pay for it. Jail. I want that box over there, baby girl, but she said no, but I'm taking it anyway. They don't want it. This is the only situation in the world, the only circumstance where you can press upon somebody something that they don't want and you don't go to jail for it. No, she don't want order to the way that you taking something that she said no to. She said no. I don't know why that's so difficult for people to figure out. When no means no. I thought no meant no, no matter what it is that we talking about. No don't mean no no more. No don't mean no. No. Yes. They don't want order to your chaos.
Funded, it's supported by the people who do it, and it lets us keep our dignity about how we treat other people.
Just to clarify for our viewers, Springfield, Ohio does have a large number of Haitian migrants who have legal status, temporary protected status.
Well, Margaret, but
thank you, Senator. We have so much to get to.
Margaret, I think it's important
we're
because
going to turn out of the economy. Thank
Margaret,
you.
the rules were that you guys weren't going to
we're-
fact check, and since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say what's actually
He
going on.
controlled everything.
So there's an application called the CBP One app,
Yep.
where you can go on as an illegal migrant, apply for asylum or apply for parole, and be granted legal status at the wave of a Kamala Harris open border wand. That is not a person coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years. That
Thank
is
you,
the
Senator.
facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by
Thank
our
you,
own
Senator, for
leadership.
describing the legal process. We have so much to get to, Senator. We have
Listen, man. Listen. He controlled the night. He controlled the night. Facts. That is a fact. Without no debate, discussion. I don't know how people caught this down the middle. It ain't even close to being in the middle. It's not even close to being in the middle. Anybody that watched this with their own eyes, is no way that you can sit there. No way that you can sit there and tell me that this was even remotely close to the middle. It's not. This was so one-sided. This was so one-sided. This was 95-5. 95. This was, hey man, good try. He gave Tim Walz a pat on the back, like, good try, big dog. You showed up. At least you showed up. That's what it was. Wasn't no underdog story. Nobody had him winning. Nobody even anticipated him winning. They thought that he was going to be competent. He looked like a child, a flailing child up there standing up next to that guy. That's just a fact. Nobody in the world can sit there and lie to me and tell me that Tim Walz effectively defended himself against an onslaught. An onslaught. That's like, he was fighting a Terminator up there. He was fighting a Terminator. This was nothing. You know what this was? This was an Obama book. This was Audacity of Hope. The audacity of you to have hope that you was going to come up here and do anything. The audacity of you. This was Iron Man fighting Thanos. We all hoped that Iron Man was going to be able to put up a fight, and we were glad when he was able to draw blood, but all it did was make Thanos a little bit more crazier, and he just laughed about it. And then he grabbed a planet and he threw it at him. Shout out to Chef Boyard JD in the building. Chef Boyard JD in the middle. I will say this, just to put the stamp on it. The Republican Party got a bullpen that is out of this world. Between JD Vance and Vivek Ramaswamy and Byron Donalds, the Republican Party, and don't let Tulsi Gabbard switch over to just being completely Republican. Because I think that she just independent, right? If Tulsi Gabbard switch over, man, you're going to seriously have the Avengers. That is a lineup. That is the most intelligent lineup out of this world. Out of this world. The Republican Party got a bullpen. Now, imagine Jasmine Crockett and AOC facing a Vivek Ramaswamy, a JD Vance, and Byron Donalds. The problem that we have is, who do we pick for the future? Which one? The lineup is insane. Insane for the Republican Party going forward. Why wouldn't you want to be on the winning team? Anyways, let me continue on because we gonna go to Byron Donalds next because we got to go ahead and hold them accountable over there on the Breakfast Club. Jake Smooth Production says, AD, JD Vance and RFK Jr. is the main reason I'm voting for Trump 2024. It's exciting. It really is be exciting on a winning team. Turd says, Vance cooked Walz in the kitchen, wrist twisting like stir fry. Stir fry. Souls of Thought says, just join the Chasers. Hey, shout out to all of the new Chasers. Shout out to the Chasers and everybody that's joined the Chasers. The link is in the description as well as pinned to the top of the chat. DJ Ace Production says, Walz came a crumbling down. Oh my God. It was bad. It was bad. Shout out to my rich friends out here in the building. Very impressive debate. Both Vance and Walz maintain focus, did their best to answer the questions and maintain respect for each other. I never vote for Trump, but I will vote for Vance Walz ticket. Both men demonstrated leadership, capability, and maturity. Well, unfortunately, you'll never get a Vance Walz thing, but you should really consider coming over to the winning side. It's best over here, big dog. Thank you, too. I appreciate you. Indigenous Cat is in the building, says, rest in peace, JVN McGee. They beat him up. The police wouldn't let him call his mom. They took his phone. They wanted to set him on fire. The rope he brought was for working out. He was jumped by bar patrons. It's being covered up by the police department. All right, I'll do some more research on that because I looked into that. So he bought a rope to work out. Interesting. Let me look into that. I don't know about that, but let me look into that. All right. Yvette, what up, Yvette? Yvette Marie in the building says love and support. Shout out to my girl Yvette Marie. I appreciate you. Latrell Emmons in the building says that silence is a killer, boy. Let him up there drowning. Left him up there to drown. Slim Jimmy in the building says after Trump, we need JD and Vivek to team up in 2028. Dre Harrison is in the building, says this whole border crisis is a South Park episode, and it's all being done on purpose. They took our jobs. Chadford Moore says JD Vance 2028 if he does well. Eric Wealth Harris is in the building, says AD, I disagree with your NBA comparison. This was more like the Celtics versus the Mavericks. In the finals, Walz was never supposed to be there. Oh my God. He was never supposed to get a game. High Tolerance says, the Philadelphia Inquirer editor scored the debate JD 4-4 Walz 6. Their comments clearly showed they were residing in a parallel universe. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. No way that they scored it that way. Sir Darkness TV says the taco JD served Walz had more than salt and pepper in it. Had everything in there. Had the whole fixing. Make sure y'all hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. Now, speaking of stir fry, no, that's not the one that I want to talk about. Speaking of stir fry, Byron Donalds appeared on the Breakfast Club. I did a quick reaction to it yesterday on the Anton Daniels channel, but I also wanted to make sure that I addressed it, the full context of some other parts for it on here. Make sure y'all hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. I want to show two parts on this. Let's see if I can scrub through and find it really quick, because this just shows that people that support Kamala Harris, I think that they might be slightly less intelligent than the rest of us. Let me see if I can find it.
Was going down in New York.
Yep.
I can't really speak to that, but what I also
it was all over the paper.
I know it was everywhere.
Let me see if I can find it.
Were allowed in Mar-a-Lago. He desegregated that. Allowed black. Well, and so that work is just as important. It's something that he might have said back there. What I mean is that the reforms in the First Step Act undid in part some of the issues in the 94 crime bill. Not totally. Not totally. It dealt with the sentencing of those people who either had their sentences reduced or were released, and their convictions were in.
And his thoughts on the whole Haitians eating.
Go ahead, Angela. Oh, what's up, Angela?
Sorry, just on this same point, you talked about taking the man in his totality.
Yeah.
So one of those things in his totality is what happened on January 6th, which was your first term in Congress.
Yeah.
Do you think he should be held accountable? Donald Trump should be held accountable for his role.
I want to get to an issue that people keep bringing up. And one of the things they keep talking about, because I'm tired of hearing about this whole January 16th. One of the things that I want to talk about is the whole making sure that the police can't be prosecuted thing or whatever, something like that. Immunity. Talking about immunity, because I hear that a lot from Democrats. Thank y'all for the super chats. I'm going to be reading those shortly. Immunity, and then also when he was talking about a couple of other things that he was sauteing them on as far as Kamala Harris and her ability to continue to cause inflation. So those are two subjects I'm trying to scrub through to make sure that we address.
Congressional baseball practice of Republicans to shoot it up was because he felt that Republicans 10,000 National Guard troops. I'm on the Oversight Committee. Muriel Bowser signed a letter on January 5th, one in the. So your question is, well, did he incite a riot? Well,
more than 1,200 people have been charged in nearly all. Philando Castile, he was with the crime bill, which I object, but I'll let you finish your point.
Fair. So let me respond to a couple things. Number one, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. There were actually two bills that were moving through the United States Senate that year. There was the George Floyd Policing Act that you discussed, and there was the bill that was written by Senator Tim Scott. They were both moving. They're both moving through the Senate, right? The Tim Scott bill is the one that could have got signed into law. It was essentially a mirror image of the George Floyd bill, except for qualified immunity. The difference between those two bills, and Angela, you just acknowledged it, the only difference between those two bills was qualified immunity. The issue with qualified immunity is very simple. If you remove qualified immunity from policing, you're going to have less officers on the street. Police officers make what? $70, $80, $90,000 a year. They have most law enforcement has about 40 million or more encounters every single year with citizens. If you remove qualified immunity, I'm telling you this right now because I've talked with law enforcement officers all across the country, not the chiefs, the officers. They will not be working these communities. I'm from Brooklyn, New York.
Brian B. Now, this is so funny. I'm glad that you said this. Because we always got, especially in the Black community, the people that don't understand laws, they don't understand police interactions, and they don't understand that police officers are often the ones that get hurt 10 times more than the people that they're policing. And that is a fact. And so when I see people that automatically say this, and then they leapfrog off of these Democratic talking points and saying, well, police need to be held accountable. No, a police officer that does something that he's not supposed to do needs to be held accountable, and often at times is held accountable. But people truly don't understand police immunity. And this is why you need people like Byron Donald to explain to you what the difference is, because a Democratic talking point versus a fact is different. Listen to what he says and then help me to understand whether or not you know what you're talking about.
I'm from Crown Heights, Brooklyn. I may not have always loved having the police in my neighborhood, and that's just a thing from a kid. I may not have always loved it, but when I needed them, they were there. And a lot of our officers today, they're Black, they're Hispanic, they're white. So removing qualified immunity only lowers the number of officers in communities. What we're seeing right now is a movement of policing from states where they're not really respecting law enforcement to states where they do, or there's not that moral support for law enforcement. I was in my district yesterday. I was talking with an officer who's from Philadelphia. He was a Philadelphia officer. He now is a Fort Myers officer. I asked him, I was like, well, why'd you make the move? He goes, because up there was no support for me as an officer for what I love to do, which is serve my community. So I said, enough is enough. I'm gonna move. He went to Florida. My sheriff in Florida, he's like, I have more applications coming from officers who are in states or in localities where they're not getting the moral support or whatever they need to continue to do their job day in, day out. And so they're leaving. Well, who does that hurt? That hurts. Who does that really hurt, though, Charlemagne?
Yeah,
because if you don't have
officers
if you don't have officers on the streets or officers, in urban areas, who's really left in that lurch?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what does qualified immunity have to do with having less police officers?
Because the economic.
So Charlemagne is showing his ignorance as usual, but Byron Donald is going to explain it to him, and then we're gonna leapfrog off of it.
Incentive of qualified immunity means that your personal assets aren't gone after if something goes wrong. So, you're in business. Do you get involved in a project or a deal that leaves you massively exposed financially? You may, depending on your passion for that project, but then you also sit back and think, now, wait a minute, if something goes wrong, I'm going to be held massively liable. Maybe I need to do something else with my life.
When goes wrong, we're talking about people getting violently hurt or killed.
Yeah, clearly.
And I named people that you brushed over.
But it's when somebody clearly violates a constitutional right.
And when you violate a constitutional right, qualified immunity doesn't apply to you. And that's what I'm talking about. It does not. And Angela, don't do that. It does not.
I thought that was the definition. I thought that was the definition.
No, it does not.
I thought that was the definition.
No, it does not. If you carry yourself outside of the confines of your training and the protocols of that department, qualified immunity doesn't apply to you.
Thank you. People are so ignorant. So when I see people on a regular basis try to argue these Democratic talking points and all of this stuff that they just keep getting from Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and all of the rest of these Jasmine Crockett's and AOC, they don't know what they're talking about. Qualified immunity does not absolve you from being held responsible for your actions as a police officer, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to show you that chat on here before he even explained it, is because most people don't know what they're talking about. If you follow the training and you follow the protocols based off of what you were told to do in your police department, then that is when you get qualified immunity, because you followed the law and you followed your training. When you step outside of that as an individual, you are held accountable. That is what it means. It means that you can't hold me accountable for the thing that I was trained to do in dealing with the crime and the problems and the issues that's within the community. And so the laws are on the books. When you see these people like a Charlemagne or Angela Rye, and they jumping on CNN and they saying all of this dumb stuff, they don't know what they're talking about. They're spewing talking points. They don't know policy. They don't know law. They don't understand, and they have not talked to one police officer that can probably educate you and give you some more insight on why you need to align yourself with laws, policies, principles, and actually better understand what you're trying to debate against people like a Byron Donald. Thank God we got a person like a Byron Donald that can more or less explain to these people and help them to understand why they're wrong. But so many people are walking around with the veil over their eyes, thinking that they know what they're talking about, and they don't. They don't.
Not true.
That is very true. That is very true.
That is patently
That
false.
is no.
How can you tell a Byron Donald, who is a legislator, what the law is? This is how ignorant Angela Rye is, the new Tesla Figueroa. Listen to what she's saying.
Not to you. It
That's
does not.
not true.
That is very true. That is very
That is
true.
patently
That
false.
is it's patently true, and we need to make sure we have that accurate. We cannot make that statement because you have a lot of officers out here who do their job with honor and dignity and respect for the people that they serve.
Well, listen, qualified immunity is a legal doctrine that protects government officials from civil lawsuits when they perform their jobs unless they clearly violate a constitutional right.
That's exactly what I'm saying. And what is a violation of that right is when they're outside the norms of their training and the protocols of that department or that agency.
Charlemagne literally just read it. She up there arguing something that she don't know. Charlemagne reads it directly to her, and she's trying to tell him how he's wrong and he's actually a legislator. Honestly, arguing with Democrats that are ignorant, that think that they smart, is like beating up on a wall. It's fighting a wall. It's crazy. And then they'll see, no, I see people, no, police officers, qualified immunity, that means they'll just be able to do whatever they want to do as long as they got the badge on. That's not what it means. That's not what it means. We need to read. We need to understand. We need to talk to people that actually can educate you and give you some insight so you'll stop acting like an idiot and saying stuff that you don't know what you're talking about, because now you're going to look like a fool. You're going to look like a fool. And this is why people like him exist. Now we just need to be able to promote it and educate people so that they'll better understand exactly what's going on. People have no clue whatsoever. But shout out to Byron Donald. Shout out to Byron Donald because he was on the Breakfast Club. Same thing JD Vance be doing. Byron Donald be doing it. He be cooking up in the kitchen. Chef Boyard B. Shout out to Chef Boyard B. Byron in the building. He up there cooking up on the Breakfast Club. I'm surprised they even let people like him up on the platform. Too smart to be sitting there negotiating with them. Crazy. Anyways, let's continue on. Read some of the super chat. Unreal. Keith Woodson says Trump is a clown and so is Vance. Vance doesn't even want to be there. After Trump loses next month, he will have to stand for sentencing. Shout out to Keith Woodson. I appreciate your $5. Thank you. You paid to say that. The Fit Accountant says 2028 JD Vance. Shout out to you. Yeah, I'm with it. The Right Insight says Dems know black people believe anything racist. Chad for Moore says basically it protects officers from being sued if they're within the department's policies and trainings. If they operate outside of that, then it's over. It's that simple. You summarized it perfectly, Chadford. Make sure y'all hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. The last thing that I want to talk about before I get y'all up out of here, because I do have a flight to catch. All right, I got a flight to catch, got business to take care of, and we're going to be doing this live stream from the studio back in Detroit tomorrow, God willing. The last thing that I want to talk about, and I'm going to read those super chats shortly, is the stock market, right? Because I know we talk a lot about the election, but we always talk about money and the money that's being spent on migrants and things like that. But we want to understand how you're going to be affected, whether each candidate, despite what we may feel, the reality is that we have to plan for both. And either way, the bag chasers is going to profit from it. All right. So I'm definitely going to be reading y'all super chat shortly. But before we do so, let's deep dive into the stock market, because CNBC basically did a summary of what they think the election is going to turn into, or what they think the election is going to do to affect the stock market. Make sure you hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. We're going to spend 10 minutes on this, not a minute more, all right? Let's get to the money. I want to actually scrub through and get to the different points, because they say what a second presidency for Trump would do, and then what a presidency for Kamala Harris would do, all right? So we just going to get straight to it.
It will end the devastating inflation crisis immediately, bring down interest rates, and lower the cost of energy. We will drill, baby, drill.
A victory for former President Trump in November will likely mean favorable conditions for the market.
Trump has made it pretty clear that he wants lower rates. He wants to be friendly to the market. He wants to be friendly to certain sectors.
You'll see a rollback in regulation, and some of the existing regulation that's pending will get neutered or fall by the wayside.
We'll have a less repressive regulatory environment, and you'll see companies more likely to engage in M&A without having that overhang of the regulators coming in and blocking transactions.
The biggest beneficiary, which is deregulation, M&A, regional banks doing better, that's small cap stocks.
If you look at after Trump was elected in November 2016, small caps in those initial months really performed well, doubled the performance of the S&P 500. During his administration, the performance was right in line to slightly below large caps, but we didn't have this really wide performance disparity that we're seeing now between the mega caps and everything else.
Trump's recent embrace of crypto could also translate to a boon for the industry during his second term.
Trump has done a 180 on crypto. I think for him it's very transactional. He himself wouldn't care as much about it, but if you had someone running the SEC who was pro-crypto, that would be seen as a big boon for the crypto community.
Yeah, I'm actually starting to do a lot of research. I'm deep diving into the woods, the infrastructure that stands it up, the ability to mine it out, because I don't feel comfortable ever investing in something unless I truly understand it and I've done my due diligence, extensive due diligence. Blockchain technology, I'm deep diving into all of that to better understand crypto so that we can start to discuss it. Because again, I think that there are experts on it, but very few people can explain it. And that's a problem for me. If you can't explain it like a little child, if you can't explain it like a C student, then I don't think that you're suited to actually invest in it. And I think you need to understand everything you invest in before you get into it, no matter how much you think that you are missing out on it. All right. So I'm starting to get into and understand cryptocurrency and technology to the extent to where I feel comfortable investing in it long term. And I think that a Trump presidency probably expedites that, all right?
Because the kind of strong regulation by enforcement under Gensler would be gone.
Some experts say Trump's friendliness towards the energy sector, however, could ultimately be negative for the sector's stocks.
The reason it's negative for energy is somewhat counterintuitive, but President Trump is favorable for drilling, and he'd want to expand where we look.
Eric D says, Anton, please stay away from crypto. Why wouldn't I want to know about crypto? Why wouldn't I want to know every single thing there is to know about cryptocurrencies and blockchain technologies? Even if you listen, y'all got to understand, even if you never invest in something in particular, you still want to be able to understand how it impacts the economy, how it impacts investing, the world's currencies, all of this type of stuff. There's never anything wrong with becoming more knowledgeable. There's never anything wrong with becoming more knowledgeable, because you need to be able to speak to, at least at a very, because my thing is real estate. I think you should just be great in one thing and then, maybe diversify a little bit depending on whether or not you want to get a little frisky, right? But don't be afraid to explore and do your research to things, even if you decide not to invest in it. There's never anything wrong with doing research, all right?
For oil, but that would put downside pressure on oil prices.
So even though that could be a positive in terms of operations for the energy companies, it doesn't necessarily mean they would do better, because it really is going to be dependent on where the price of oil is and what's going on really with China.
Drill, baby, drill is great for inflation. It's great for the consumer, but it's not necessarily good if you're selling oil, and oil's all about supply and demand.
Meanwhile, Trump's rhetoric on tariffs, including his proposed 10% tariff on all imports into the United States and a 60% or higher tariff on Chinese imports, could hurt large cap companies, while some investors say provide opportunities for small caps and other emerging markets.
Any
kind of company which has got a large international revenue exposure, and they're typically those larger companies, they probably stand to lose the most, because if there is any kind of very significant tariff either against China, Europe, or any other country, those companies with international revenues, of course, are going to be more hurt than the companies which have.
So basically what they're saying is, because I know y'all like for me to break it down from a C student's perspective, what they're saying is that a Trump presidency, which ultimately can include more tariffs against foreign companies, the companies that actually benefit the most are those that actually manufacture their products inside the United States of America and have less exposure to foreign markets. Now, it doesn't mean that American companies can't do business in foreign markets, but foreign companies that people are invested in, those could suffer because it'll be a bigger barrier to entry for them to actually be able to make money inside of the United States of America, which is still a huge, huge economy, and it pours into the profits of a lot of foreign companies themselves. So if these foreign companies, for example, does not have manufacturing facilities, if they don't build their products and employ American citizens, then they will not be able to benefit from the economy as much as American companies that manufacture their products here in the United States of America. So then it'll be a separation. One of the things that I'm banking on, and one of the things that I'm paying attention to, which again, a lot of people know some of the companies that I'm invested in. One of the companies that I'm invested in, and honestly, I'm able to take a little bit more of a risk because the rest of my portfolio is doing really well, is Rivian. But a lot of y'all know my philosophy would like that, and that I have a 15-year view, a 20-year view on that company if it was to survive, of how it would thrive. But what this is basically saying is that the play is, if Trump wins the presidency, to have less exposure to foreign companies that then choose to do business in America that depends on shipping products exclusively into America that's not manufacturing their products here, because tariffs will leave them more exposed, and their profits will then erode, which then plays on whatever it is that the people that's invested in their companies, right? The shareholders are the ones that's going to pay the price for that. All right, let's continue.
More domestically focused, and certainly that speaks to the small cap companies maybe starting in a slightly stronger position than the large cap companies under Trump administration. If there are greater actions against China, well then companies in India are probably going to see a lot of interest. In the last 2 years, we've already seen that India has acted almost like a diversifier against China.
If Harris is elected, an area that would tend to benefit would probably be some of the renewables, some of the green energy areas.
The biggest thing about Harris being in power would be protection and continued implementation of the Inflation Reduction Act, which is a key legacy of the Biden administration. A lot of it hasn't been implemented yet, but this is big for wind and solar, biofuels, nuclear, hydrogen.
One of the leaders in renewables would be NextEra Energy. That's a company that is in the utility sector, so will benefit from lower rates. But alternatively, some of the policies that could come out would actually probably be pro more green, solar, wind energy. So I think that's another area that investors should be thinking about that could benefit from A, lower rates, but B, a Harris administration because of favorable viewpoints toward those industries and sectors.
Under a Harris administration, we would think that the international economy probably stands to benefit relative to a Trump administration. From a market perspective, the market will start to realize fairly quickly that maybe Europe, China, parts of Latin America are not going to have as serious tariffs enforced on them. So you could.
So basically what she's saying is that Trump is America first. The Biden / Kamala Harris administration, which we'll have more of, probably an exaggerated version of it, is not so much, which would then also benefit a lot of foreign companies, which is where you would then put your money. Let me just say this. We don't even need to get into this too much more. My philosophy is the dollar cost average. All right. That's number one. Because before you start getting into the thick of things and before you start to really try to figure out what's going on in the markets and stuff like that, S&P 500, dollar cost averaging, making sure that you research the companies, the 8 things that I look for when I'm looking to invest in a stock. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Don't get too heavy into betting, right? And this is one of the things that I think that people get caught up in, is that they start to bet. They start to gamble. They start trying to time the market. They start to invest in companies based off of talking points and rhetoric instead of real research, because a fundamentally sound company is going to do well regardless of whether or not there's a Biden administration or if there's a Trump administration. There are different markets and different segments that tend to benefit more such as anything related to energy and the Green New Deal and all of that and tree hugging, right? Solar companies, maybe also, we don't know because they are willing to cause more inflation for making sure that they protect the environment, so to speak, and push that agenda more than maybe the Trump administration that believes in making sure that they also invest in American first companies and that we need to get out of debt also, right? So it's two different philosophies politically, but then they can benefit consumers depending on which side of the fence that you invest in. But a fundamentally sound company, it doesn't really matter who's in the office, they're going to adjust, they already prepared for it, and their profits may take a hit, but it doesn't mean that they're not going to be incredibly successful because they are a part of the economy. You take an Apple, you take a Microsoft, you take all of these places. Um, we like to talk about the Magnificent Seven inside of the Patreon a lot, and then we take some of these pieces out. Right, we like to talk about certain ETFs. Those are awesome, but dollar cost average. Don't get scared. Don't get spooked. You're gonna be fine either way. And even if there's a lull in the market, because there's a roller coaster ride. It's up and down. It goes back and down. I remember in 2008, everything was way down. Really, it was just a buying opportunity because everything wound up coming back, right? So those that sold because they were scared are the ones that get massacred. Dollar cost averaging, meaning that you basically automating the investment process the same way that you automate your 401ks, you automate the investing process. Don't really pay attention to it. Continue to do your research and then make slight adjustments. You'll be fine. Make sure you tap into the Patreon, get in the stock club, and we're going to run it up. All right. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Y'all are the greatest audience on earth. And we will be back doing this in the morning. In the morning. Same time, same show. Don't matter what time zone we in. We gonna get it in. Let me read some of these super chats and I'm gonna get y'all out of here and then I gotta prepare for my flight. Florida Panoramic says God himself can't correct some of these black women. They fish greased in her in the comments. And I know they be mad when they read them comments. Keyshawn White says they use race to keep power and keep you blinded on reality. Sly White says Angela Rye happens to be an attorney. Let us hope she backs up her disagreement with a law citation. Otherwise, she isn't worth her law loans. A lot of people get a degree, but that don't necessarily mean that they're good at what they do. Dean Murray says, we got to find a way to get Trump on your show. Cynthia Haynes says, my favorite mayor, Kwame Kilpatrick, is the real deal too. Shout out to my dog. JC says Angela R and JD has a JD Byron D. Doesn't. All right. Billy Ray Valentine says crypto is a safety net against quantitative easing. Blockchain Brown says, good morning, Anton. You have a blockchain guy at your disposal, man. Certified blockchain expert for 7 years. Glad to help. Black. And his name is Blockchain Brian. Shout out to my dog Brian. All right, that's a bet. Listen, I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Get your tickets to come and kick it with me at the show, especially my VIPs. I'm going to be spending an extended period of time with them. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Y'all the greatest audience on earth. I'm going to holler at y'all later. Peace.